It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Niccolo Machiavelli, they tell you mastery requires transparency, that true skill shines brightest when openly displayed. They preach authenticity, vulnerability, a naked parade of competence. This is a comfortable lie for the comfortable, a tool for the mediocre to disarm the dangerous. True mastery understands the power of the veil, the strength in selective exposure, the strategic advantage of controlled perception. To reveal all is to invite scrutiny, to breed complacency in your rivals, and to offer your weaknesses as targets. The world is a battlefield of perception. Your skills are weapons, and a weapon is most effective when its presence is unexpected, its edge unseen until the precise moment of impact. Consider the master strategist in a game of chess. Does he reveal his every thought, his every calculation? Does he telegraph his intentions with flamboyant gestures? No. He remains inscrutable, his face a mask, his mind a fortress. He allows his opponent to believe what he wants to believe, to see what he wants to see, until the trap is sprung and the game is won. This is not dishonesty. It is strategic deployment of information. It is understanding that perception is reality, and that controlling perception is controlling the game. Think of the surgeon, his hands moving with practiced precision. Does he announce each incision, each suture, each delicate maneuver? Does he invite the gallery to observe his every tremor, his every moment of doubt? No. He projects an aura of unwavering confidence, a sense of absolute control. He veils the complexity of the procedure, the inherent risks, the potential for error, because his patient needs to believe in his infallibility. This is not deception. It is the cultivation of trust, the creation of an environment conducive to healing. The artist, too, understands the power of the veil. He does not reveal the countless hours of struggle, the discarded sketches, the moments of self-doubt that precede the creation of a masterpiece. He presents the finished product, polished and refined, its flaws concealed beneath layers of technique and artistry. He allows the viewer to be captivated by the illusion, to be transported to another world, without being burdened by the mechanics of its creation. This is not artifice. It is the distillation of experience, the transformation of raw emotion into something beautiful and enduring. Even the Stoic sage understands the necessity of selective revelation. He does not broadcast his every thought, his every feeling, his every internal struggle. He cultivates an inner reserve, a space of quiet contemplation where he can process his emotions and make rational decisions without being swayed by the opinions of others. He veils his vulnerabilities, not out of fear or shame, but out of a commitment to self-mastery. This is not repression. It is the exercise of self-control, the conscious shaping of one's own character. The world rewards those who understand the game, who master the art of perception management. It punishes those who naively expose themselves, who mistake transparency for strength. Embrace the power of the veil. Cultivate your skills in secret. Reveal only what is necessary when it is necessary. Let your actions speak louder than your words, and let your enemies underestimate you at their peril. For the greatest mastery is often concealed beneath the most unassuming facade. The human mind is a labyrinth, and the skilled manipulator understands its twists and turns. Deception is not merely about telling lies. It is about controlling the narrative, shaping perception, and subtly influencing behavior. A master deceiver operates on multiple levels, understanding the psychology of their target and exploiting their vulnerabilities with surgical precision. They know that people are more likely to believe what they want to believe, and they craft their deceptions accordingly, feeding into existing biases and desires. They are students of human nature, constantly observing, analyzing, and adapting their strategies to maximize their effectiveness. The most potent deceptions are often those that contain a grain of truth, making them all the more believable. By carefully weaving together fact and fiction, the deceiver creates a compelling illusion that is difficult to resist. They understand the power of suggestion, the subtle art of planting ideas in the minds of others without them realizing they are being manipulated. They are masters of nonverbal communication, using body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions to convey sincerity and trustworthiness, even when they are uttering falsehoods. This goes beyond mere acting. It requires a deep understanding of emotional intelligence and the ability to project an image of confidence and control. A key element of deception lies in misdirection, drawing attention away from the truth by creating a compelling distraction. This can involve elaborate schemes, carefully orchestrated events, or simply a well-timed remark designed to divert suspicion. The deceiver understands that people are easily distracted, and they exploit this tendency to their advantage. They are also adept at managing risk, carefully weighing the potential rewards against the potential consequences of their actions. They understand that deception is a dangerous game, and they take steps to minimize their exposure and protect themselves from detection. This may involve creating alibis, destroying evidence, or enlisting the help of accomplices. The ability to cultivate trust is essential for any successful deceiver. People are more likely to believe those they trust, and the deceiver cultivates this trust through careful observation and calculated displays of empathy. They may feign vulnerability, share personal information, or offer assistance in times of need, all in an effort to build rapport and gain the confidence of their target. However, this trust is always a means to an end, a tool to be used and discarded when it no longer serves its purpose. The deceiver is ultimately a pragmatist, driven by their own self-interest, and they will not hesitate to betray those who have placed their trust in them if it benefits their goals. They understand that relationships are transactional, and they are constantly assessing the value of their connections, seeking to maximize their returns and minimize their risks. In the realm of power dynamics, deception is often used as a tool to gain an advantage over rivals. This can involve spreading rumors, sabotaging their efforts, or manipulating their emotions to undermine their confidence. The deceiver understands that information is power, and they carefully control the flow of information to their own advantage. They may withhold crucial details, distort the truth, or leak false information to mislead their opponents and gain a competitive edge. They are masters of psychological warfare, using fear, uncertainty, and doubt to weaken their adversaries and force them into making mistakes. This is not about physical dominance. It is about mental manipulation, the ability to control the narrative and shape the perceptions of others. The truly skilled deceiver understands the importance of patience and timing. They do not rush their plans, but rather wait for the opportune moment to strike. They understand that impulsivity is a weakness, and they cultivate a sense of detachment, allowing them to observe and analyze the situation without being swayed by emotions. They are masters of delayed gratification, willing to invest time and effort in building relationships and gathering information, knowing that these investments will pay off in the long run. They understand that the most effective deceptions are often those that unfold gradually, subtly influencing the target over time. They are also adept at adapting to changing circumstances, adjusting their strategies as needed to maintain their advantage. They understand that the world is constantly in flux, and they must be flexible and adaptable to survive and thrive. This requires a keen sense of awareness, the ability to anticipate potential challenges and proactively address them before they become insurmountable obstacles. The deceiver is a strategist, constantly planning and executing their moves with precision and foresight. They are always thinking several steps ahead, anticipating the reactions of their target and preparing counter-strategies to neutralize any potential threats. They understand that deception is a complex game of chess, and they are determined to be the one who checkmates their opponent. Moreover, the ethical considerations of deception are often secondary to the pursuit of power and influence. While some may view deception as morally reprehensible, the deceiver sees it as a necessary tool for achieving their goals. They may rationalize their actions by arguing that the ends justify the means, or that they are simply playing the game by the rules that have been established by society. They may even convince themselves that they are acting in the best interests of others, even if their methods are questionable. The deceiver is a master of self-deception, able to justify their actions to themselves and to others, even when they are clearly wrong. They are skilled at twisting reality to fit their own narrative, and they will not hesitate to lie to themselves if it serves their purpose. This is not necessarily a sign of sociopathy. It is often simply a manifestation of their strong desire to achieve their goals and maintain their sense of control. The deceiver is driven by ambition, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to succeed, even if it means sacrificing their own moral principles. They understand that the world is a competitive place, and they believe that they must be ruthless and cunning to survive. They see themselves as warriors in a constant battle for dominance, and they are determined to emerge victorious, regardless of the cost. This mentality is not necessarily admirable, but it is a reality that must be understood in order to navigate the complexities of human interaction. Ultimately, the mastery of deception is a reflection of a deep understanding of human nature and the ability to exploit its vulnerabilities. It is a skill that can be used for good or evil, depending on the intentions of the individual. Consider the case of a high-stakes business negotiation, a merger between two corporations where the CEO of the smaller company, we'll call him Eldon, appears to be the picture of affable cooperation. Eldon outwardly expresses enthusiasm for the merger, praising the synergies between the two companies and the potential for shared growth. He readily agrees to key terms, offers concessions seemingly without hesitation, and paints a rosy picture of the future collaboration. Throughout the negotiation process, Eldon cultivates a personal rapport with the CEO of the larger corporation, a woman named Anya, engaging in friendly banter, sharing personal anecdotes, and creating a sense of camaraderie. He seems open, honest, and genuinely interested in Anya's perspective, building a foundation of trust and mutual respect. Anya, initially wary of potential power struggles and conflicting agendas, finds herself increasingly at ease with Eldon. She interprets his willingness to compromise and his positive attitude as signs of genuine collaboration and a shared vision. The merger progresses smoothly, seemingly benefiting both companies, with Eldon securing a lucrative position within the newly formed organization. However, beneath the surface of this apparent harmony lies a carefully constructed web of deception. Eldon's outward cooperation is a calculated strategy to conceal his true intentions, the gradual dismantling of the merged entity from within. His concessions were not acts of generosity, but rather tactical sacrifices designed to lull Anya into a false sense of security. The personal rapport he cultivated was a deliberate manipulation of Anya's emotions, exploiting her natural inclination to trust those she perceives as allies. In reality, Eldon harbors a deep-seated resentment towards Anya and the larger corporation. He believes that his own company was undervalued in the merger, and that Anya's success is undeserved. He sees the merger as an opportunity to exact revenge and reclaim what he believes is rightfully his. Eldon's plan is meticulously crafted. He uses his new position within the merged company to subtly undermine Anya's authority, spreading rumors and sowing seeds of doubt among her senior management team. He strategically delays key projects, creating bottlenecks and inefficiencies that damage the company's overall performance. He leaks confidential information to competitors, sabotaging critical business deals and eroding the company's market share. All the while, Eldon maintains his facade of affability and cooperation, ensuring that Anya remains oblivious to his true intentions. He skillfully deflects blame for the company's problems, attributing them to external factors or the incompetence of others. He even offers Anya unsolicited advice and support, further solidifying her perception of him as a trusted confidant. Eldon's deception is so masterful that Anya initially dismisses concerns raised by her advisors. She attributes their skepticism to professional jealousy or personal biases, blinded by her own positive experiences with Eldon. It is only after months of escalating problems and mounting evidence that Anya begins to suspect the truth. She realizes that Eldon's apparent cooperation was a carefully constructed charade designed to conceal his destructive agenda. By the time Anya uncovers Eldon's plot, the damage is already done. The merged company is in disarray, its reputation tarnished, and its financial performance severely compromised. Anya is forced to take drastic measures to salvage the situation, including restructuring the company, firing key employees, and launching a costly investigation into Eldon's activities. Eldon, having achieved his objectives, quietly resigns from the company, taking with him a substantial severance package and a sense of vindication. He leaves behind a trail of chaos and bitterness, a testament to his mastery of deception and his willingness to exploit the trust and goodwill of others. This scenario illustrates the insidious nature of deception and the importance of vigilance in high-stakes environments. It demonstrates how outward appearances can be profoundly misleading and how even the most astute individuals can be manipulated by a skilled deceiver. Eldon's success lies not only in his ability to lie convincingly, but also in his understanding of human psychology and his willingness to exploit the vulnerabilities of others. He understands that trust is a valuable commodity, and that those who are willing to betray it can gain a significant advantage. He also understands that people are often more willing to believe what they want to believe, even when confronted with contradictory evidence. Eldon's case is a reminder that true mastery often involves the ability to conceal one's true intentions and to manipulate the perceptions of others. It is a skill that can be used for both good and evil, and it is essential to understand its dynamics in order to protect oneself from those who would seek to exploit it. This requires a detached observation, devoid of emotional investment in the narratives presented, and a constant questioning of the motives behind the displayed actions. The failure to recognize deception often stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature, a naive belief in inherent goodness, and a reluctance to confront the darker aspects of human behavior. The weak are lulled into complacency by carefully constructed facades of trustworthiness and competence, unable to perceive the manipulative currents flowing beneath the surface. They trust readily, projecting their own values and intentions onto others, a fatal flaw in environments where strategic advantage is paramount. This vulnerability is further compounded by a tendency to avoid conflict and maintain social harmony, a desire to be liked and accepted that blinds them to the warning signs of manipulation. They prioritize superficial pleasantries over critical assessment, allowing deceivers to operate with impunity. The weak also cling to comforting narratives and resist information that challenges their worldview, selectively filtering out data that contradicts their preconceived notions. This cognitive bias makes them susceptible to carefully crafted lies that reinforce their existing beliefs, further solidifying the deceiver's control. Moreover, the weak often lack the self-awareness and emotional intelligence necessary to recognize and interpret subtle cues of deception, such as microexpressions, inconsistencies in body language, and carefully worded statements designed to mislead. They are easily distracted by emotional appeals and appeals to authority, failing to analyze the underlying logic and motivations. Furthermore, they are often intimidated by displays of confidence and expertise, assuming that those in positions of power are inherently trustworthy and competent. This deference to authority blinds them to the potential for abuse and manipulation. The weak also exhibit a tendency to avoid uncomfortable truths, preferring to remain in a state of blissful ignorance rather than confront the harsh realities of the world. This avoidance behavior makes them easy targets for deceivers who exploit their desire for comfort and security. In essence, the failure to recognize deception is a multifaceted problem rooted in a combination of cognitive biases, emotional vulnerabilities, and a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. It is a weakness that can be exploited by those who are willing to use deception as a tool to achieve their own selfish ends. Only through cultivating a critical and skeptical mindset developing a keen awareness of human psychology, and fostering a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths can one hope to protect oneself from the insidious influence of deception. This requires constant vigilance, a willingness to question everything, and a commitment to seeking out objective truth, regardless of how unpleasant it may be. The price of complacency is often exploitation, and the weak are destined to be victims unless they develop the mental fortitude and strategic awareness necessary to defend themselves. They fail to see the game being played, too focused on the immediate and the personal to discern the larger patterns of manipulation unfolding around them. Their empathy, a quality that could be a strength, becomes instead a liability, used against them by those who feel no such constraints. They value loyalty and reciprocity, concepts that are meaningless to the skilled deceiver who sees only opportunities for exploitation. The weak, trapped in their own moral framework, cannot conceive of the depths of duplicity to which others are willing to sink, and this naivete becomes their undoing. To effectively navigate a world rife with deception, one must understand that mastery can serve as a powerful veil, concealing ulterior motives and manipulative strategies. The skilled deceiver understands that true mastery, or even the carefully crafted illusion of it, inspires trust and admiration, disarming potential targets and rendering them less likely to question intentions or scrutinize actions. This is because perceived competence often carries an implicit assumption of integrity. People naturally tend to believe that those who have demonstrably achieved a high level of skill or knowledge in a particular domain are less likely to engage in dishonest or unethical behavior. This assumption, however, is a dangerous fallacy. The Machiavellian strategist recognizes the power of this bias and exploits it to their advantage. They cultivate an aura of expertise, not necessarily to genuinely excel in a given field, but rather to create a smokescreen behind which they can operate with impunity. This manufactured mastery can take many forms, from a carefully curated public persona to the strategic display of superficial knowledge and skills. The key is to project an image of competence that is convincing enough to bypass the critical faculties of the target, even if the underlying substance is lacking. For instance, a con artist might spend weeks studying the jargon and techniques of a particular profession, such as finance or medicine, in order to convince potential victims that they are dealing with a legitimate expert. They may even go so far as to obtain fake credentials or certifications to further bolster their credibility. Once they have established this facade of mastery, they can then use it to manipulate their targets into making decisions that are detrimental to their own interests, all while maintaining the illusion that they are acting in the target's best interest. The target, blinded by the perceived expertise of the deceiver, is unable to see the true nature of the game being played, and thus becomes an easy mark. Furthermore, the appearance of mastery can also serve to intimidate potential adversaries, deterring them from challenging the deceiver's authority or questioning their motives. People are often hesitant to confront those who they perceive as being more knowledgeable or skilled than themselves, fearing that they will be exposed as ignorant or incompetent. This fear can be a powerful tool in the hands of the Machiavellian strategist, allowing them to maintain control of a situation and prevent others from interfering with their plans. Therefore, it is crucial to approach all claims of mastery with a healthy dose of skepticism and to avoid being swayed by superficial displays of competence. One must always look beyond the surface and examine the underlying substance, seeking evidence of genuine skill and knowledge, rather than simply accepting the claims of the individual at face value. This requires a willingness to challenge assumptions, to ask difficult questions, and to remain vigilant against the subtle tactics of manipulation that are often employed by those who seek to deceive. Only by cultivating this critical and discerning mindset can one hope to protect oneself from the insidious influence of deception masked by the veil of mastery. Moreover, true mastery itself can be a form of deception, not necessarily in the sense of deliberate dishonesty, but rather in the sense of concealing one's true capabilities and intentions. A skilled strategist may deliberately downplay their abilities or feign ignorance in order to lull their opponents into a false sense of security. This tactic, known as sandbagging, can be particularly effective in competitive situations, such as negotiations or games of strategy. By underestimating their opponent's abilities, the strategist can gain a significant advantage, allowing them to make unexpected moves and exploit weaknesses that would not have been apparent otherwise. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology and the ability to anticipate the reactions of others. The strategist must be able to accurately assess their opponent's strengths and weaknesses, and to tailor their own behavior accordingly. They must also be able to control their own emotions and avoid giving away any telltale signs of their true intentions. The ability to deceive in this way is a hallmark of true mastery, not just in the domain of strategy, but also in many other areas of life, such as business, politics, and even personal relationships. It is a skill that requires constant practice and refinement, and it is one that can be used for both good and evil. The key is to use it responsibly and ethically, and to avoid using it to exploit or harm others. The ultimate goal should be to achieve one's own objectives without resorting to deception, but to be prepared to use it as a last resort when necessary to protect oneself from the machinations of others. Consider the rise of the Roman Empire. While military might and organizational prowess were undoubtedly crucial, Rome's ascent was also paved with carefully constructed illusions. Consistently, they presented themselves as reluctant warriors, forced into conflict by the aggression of their neighbors. Treaties were signed, only to be broken when strategic advantage dictated. Allies were cultivated with promises of mutual benefit, then absorbed into the ever-expanding Roman dominion. The image projected was one of pragmatic defense, a nation securing its borders, responding to threats only when provoked. Yet behind this facade lay a relentless ambition for conquest and control. The subjugation of Carthage offers a stark example. The Punic Wars were portrayed as a series of defensive actions against Carthaginian aggression, subtly shifting the narrative to position Rome as the injured party, the defender of its own interests. In reality, Rome actively sought to undermine Carthaginian power, instigating conflict and exploiting internal divisions. The destruction of Carthage was not merely a military victory, it was a carefully orchestrated act of deception, cloaked in the guise of righteous retribution. This pattern extended throughout Rome's expansion. The annexation of territories was often justified through legalistic arguments, convoluted treaties, or claims of protecting weaker states from barbarian incursions. The true motivation, the acquisition of resources, strategic dominance, and the expansion of Roman power, remained largely obscured. Even within the Roman military, deception played a critical role. Commanders like Julius Caesar were masters of disinformation, spreading false rumors to demoralize enemy troops, exaggerating their own strength, and concealing their true intentions. During sieges, they might feign a lack of resources, only to launch a sudden, overwhelming assault when the enemy's guard was down. On the battlefield, feigned retreats and flanking maneuvers were common tactics, designed to lure opponents into traps and exploit vulnerabilities. The Roman army's reputation for discipline and invincibility was itself a form of deception, intimidating potential adversaries and discouraging resistance. This strategic use of deception was not limited to military campaigns. It permeated Roman political life. Senators routinely engaged in elaborate displays of piety and patriotism, concealing their personal ambitions and power struggles behind a veneer of civic duty. Alliances were forged and broken with ruthless calculation, and rivals were undermined through subtle manipulation and character assassination. The ability to present oneself as a selfless servant of the state while secretly pursuing one's own interests was a crucial skill for any aspiring Roman politician. The manipulation of public opinion was also a key element of Roman power. Public works projects, such as aqueducts and amphitheaters, were not merely expressions of civic pride. They were carefully calculated to win popular support and solidify the regime's legitimacy. Gladiatorial contests and public spectacles served as distractions, diverting attention from political unrest and economic inequality. The Roman emperors, in particular, were masters of propaganda, using art, architecture, and literature to create a cult of personality and reinforce their authority. The image of the benevolent emperor, the protector of the people, was often at odds with the reality of their tyrannical rule, but it served to maintain order and suppress dissent. This historical parallel serves to illustrate the profound connection between mastery and deception. The Romans understood that true power lay not merely in brute force, but in the ability to control perception, to manipulate narratives, and to conceal one's true intentions. Their success was not simply a result of military might or organizational efficiency. It was a product of their mastery of deception, their ability to present a carefully crafted image to the world, and to exploit the vulnerabilities of their opponents. The Roman example serves as a cautionary tale, demonstrating the dangers of unchecked ambition and the corrosive effects of power, but it also provides valuable insights into the strategic importance of deception in the pursuit of mastery. The ability to veil one's true intentions, to manipulate perceptions, and to exploit weaknesses remains a crucial skill in any competitive arena, whether it be on the battlefield, in the boardroom, or in the realm of personal relationships. The psychology of this veil lies in the fundamental human drive for predictability and comfort. We crave understanding, and when faced with complexity or uncertainty, we instinctively seek patterns and explanations. Mastery, particularly when projected with confidence, offers a seductive sense of order and control. It presents a clear narrative, a defined path, and a seemingly reliable guide. This perceived competence becomes a powerful form of social proof, influencing our judgment and reducing our critical faculties. We are more likely to trust, to obey, and even to forgive the actions of someone we perceive as a master, even when those actions are questionable or self-serving. The master deceiver understands this inherent bias and exploits it ruthlessly. They cultivate an aura of expertise, not necessarily through genuine skill, but through carefully constructed displays of knowledge and authority. This can involve the use of specialized jargon, the citation of obscure sources, or the performance of seemingly impossible feats. The goal is not necessarily to convince everyone, but to create a core of believers who will then amplify their message and defend their reputation. Consider the cult leader who promises enlightenment or salvation. They often present themselves as possessing unique insights or access to hidden knowledge, creating a sense of exclusivity and superiority. Their followers, desperate for meaning and direction, readily accept their claims, even in the face of contradictory evidence. The master deceiver also understands the power of emotional manipulation. They know how to play on our fears, our desires, and our insecurities. They may offer solutions to our problems, validation of our beliefs, or simply a sense of belonging. This emotional connection can override our rational judgment, making us more susceptible to their influence. The con artist, for example, often builds rapport with their victims by feigning empathy and understanding. They may share personal stories, express similar values, or even offer unsolicited advice. This creates a sense of trust and reciprocity, making it easier to persuade the victim to part with their money or information. The veil of mastery is not merely a superficial disguise. It is a carefully constructed psychological trap. It exploits our inherent biases, our emotional vulnerabilities, and our desire for certainty. By understanding the mechanisms of this deception, we can become more aware of its presence and more resistant to its influence. The key is to cultivate a healthy skepticism, to question authority, and to demand evidence. We must be willing to challenge our own assumptions and to consider alternative perspectives, even when they are uncomfortable or unpopular. True discernment requires a critical mind, an open heart, and a willingness to see beyond the surface. It demands a constant vigilance against the seductive allure of mastery and a commitment to seeking truth, even when it is hidden behind a veil of deception. Furthermore, the deceptive master often employs a strategy of strategic ambiguity. They avoid making explicit commitments or pronouncements, preferring instead to speak in vague generalities or cryptic pronouncements. This allows them to maintain plausible deniability and to adapt their message as circumstances change. The politician, for instance, may promise to improve the economy or protect the environment without specifying the concrete steps they will take to achieve these goals. This allows them to appeal to a broad range of voters while avoiding accountability for specific actions. The master deceiver also understands the importance of timing and context. They know when to strike, when to retreat, and when to remain silent. They are adept at reading the social and political landscape and at exploiting opportunities as they arise. The corporate raider, for example, may wait for a company to become vulnerable before launching a hostile takeover, exploiting internal conflicts or external pressures to their advantage. The art of deception is not simply about lying. It is about creating a carefully crafted illusion that serves one's own interests. It requires a deep understanding of human psychology, a keen sense of strategy, and a willingness to exploit the weaknesses of others. The pursuit of mastery, when divorced from ethical considerations, can easily lead to the embrace of deception. The desire for power, for control, and for recognition can corrupt even the most well-intentioned individuals. The key is to remain vigilant, to cultivate a strong moral compass, and to resist the temptation to compromise one's integrity in the pursuit of success. The rise of a seemingly benevolent tech entrepreneur provides a stark illustration. He presented himself as a visionary, dedicated to connecting the world and empowering individuals. His company, initially hailed as a revolutionary force for good, amassed a staggering amount of user data. This data, ostensibly collected to improve user experience and personalize content, became the foundation for a sophisticated surveillance apparatus. The entrepreneur, cloaked in the rhetoric of social responsibility, gradually eroded privacy protections and leveraged user information for targeted advertising and political manipulation. He cultivated a public image of transparency and openness, participating in town hall meetings and publishing lengthy blog posts about his company's commitment to ethical practices. However, behind the scenes, his lieutenants were developing algorithms to identify and suppress dissenting voices, shaping public opinion through subtle nudges and carefully crafted narratives. The entrepreneur understood that overt censorship would be met with resistance. Instead, he opted for a more insidious approach, prioritizing certain content over others, amplifying supportive voices, and subtly discrediting critics. He mastered the art of deflection, responding to concerns about data privacy with vague assurances and misdirection, always emphasizing the benefits of his platform and downplaying the risks. He positioned himself as a champion of free speech, while simultaneously manipulating the flow of information to suit his own agenda. His philanthropic endeavors further cemented his image as a benevolent leader, diverting attention from the company's questionable practices. Donations to educational institutions and charitable organizations were strategically timed to coincide with negative press coverage, effectively mitigating public scrutiny. He cultivated relationships with influential politicians and media figures, ensuring favorable coverage and access to key decision-makers. His network of allies served as a buffer, shielding him from criticism and amplifying his message. The entrepreneur's mastery of deception extended to his internal management style. He fostered a culture of fear and obedience, rewarding loyalty and punishing dissent. Employees were encouraged to report on one another, creating a climate of paranoia and mistrust. He used performance reviews to subtly manipulate behavior, rewarding those who aligned with his vision and marginalizing those who questioned his authority. He understood that a divided workforce was easier to control. He created a cult of personality around himself, inspiring fervent devotion among his employees. They believed in his vision and were willing to overlook his flaws, even when confronted with evidence of wrongdoing. He presented himself as a father figure, offering guidance and support, while simultaneously demanding unwavering loyalty. The entrepreneur's deception was not limited to external stakeholders. He also misled his own investors, inflating user numbers and exaggerating the company's growth potential. He used complex financial instruments to conceal the company's true financial position, creating the illusion of profitability and attracting further investment. He understood that perception was more important than reality. As the company's power grew, so did the entrepreneur's ambition. He began to exert influence over political outcomes, using his platform to promote candidates who aligned with his interests and to undermine those who posed a threat. He funded think tanks and lobbying groups to shape public policy, ensuring that his company's interests were protected. He effectively became a shadow government, wielding immense power behind the scenes. The entrepreneur's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the seductive power of deception. His mastery of manipulation allowed him to amass vast wealth and influence, but at the cost of his own integrity and the erosion of democratic values. His legacy is a testament to the enduring relevance of Machiavellian principles in the modern age. The entrepreneur's success hinged not merely on isolated acts of deceit, but on a calculated orchestration of perception, built upon a foundation of genuine skill. His proficiency in his field, his apparent dedication, and even his flashes of generosity served as camouflage, obscuring the underlying ruthlessness. The more competent he appeared, the less likely anyone was to question his motives. This is the crucial paradox: mastery veils deception. A mediocre liar is easily detected. A master deceiver blends seamlessly into the background, their falsehoods indistinguishable from the truth. He became a virtuoso of the self-serving lie. He understood that trust is a currency, carefully earned and strategically spent. He cultivated an image of competence and control, a perception of unwavering strength. This veneer of mastery served as a shield, deflecting scrutiny and fostering a sense of security among those around him. People are drawn to confidence, to the illusion of certainty. By projecting an aura of invincibility, he disarmed his rivals and secured the allegiance of his followers. He did not simply lie. He crafted a narrative, a compelling story that resonated with people's desires and fears. He presented himself as the solution to their problems, the savior who could lead them to a brighter future. The truly dangerous individual is not the obvious charlatan, but the one who possesses genuine talent and uses it to manipulate others. He studied his targets, identifying their weaknesses and vulnerabilities. He knew what they wanted to hear, what they feared, and what they valued. He then tailored his message to exploit these vulnerabilities, creating a sense of rapport and building a foundation of trust. He offered them validation, reassurance, and the promise of reward. He used flattery and praise to manipulate their egos, making them feel important and valued. He subtly influenced their decisions, guiding them down the path he had laid out. The entrepreneur's deception was not a mere tactic, it was a way of life. He embraced a philosophy of expediency, prioritizing results over ethics. He saw the world as a chessboard and people as pawns to be moved and sacrificed. He was willing to do whatever it took to achieve his goals, regardless of the consequences. He justified his actions by convincing himself that he was acting in the greater good, that his ends justified his means. He saw himself as a visionary, a disruptor, a force for progress. He was willing to break the rules to challenge the status quo to achieve his vision. The key to his success lay in his ability to control the narrative. He understood that perception is reality, and that he could shape reality by controlling the flow of information. He used propaganda, misinformation, and outright lies to manipulate public opinion. He cultivated relationships with journalists and media outlets, ensuring that his message was amplified and that dissenting voices were silenced. He understood the power of repetition, and he relentlessly hammered home his message until it became accepted as truth. He rewrote history, sanitized his past, and crafted a myth of his own making. The entrepreneur's story is a chilling reminder that mastery can be a mask, a disguise for the darkest of intentions. It is a testament to the seductive power of deception and the enduring relevance of Machiavellian principles in the modern age. He mastered his craft so completely that the tools of that craft became the tools of his manipulation. The deeper the skill, the deeper the potential for exploitation. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow it casts. The more he built, the more he was able to steal.